Hello everyone, welcome to the course on simulating fluid flows using Python. So far we have looked at one-dimensional and two-dimensional heat diffusion scenarios, and today we would be talking about what is called as a source term. So the lecture today is divided basically into two parts as to what exactly is this source term and how we can incorporate that or how we can handle that in our governing equations. And the second part of this lecture would be about how we can change our existing Python scripts in order to incorporate the source term. So if you had remembered, we had briefly looked at the idea of the source term, and this also occurs when you deal with the flow problems. So for example, when we talk about momentum equation, the source term could be in the form of buoyancy force, for example, and that could drive the flow. So this is where the source term could be important, not just for a thermal kind of problem, but for the flow problems of our interest as well. Hopefully that should make you stick until the end of this lecture and you would learn a lot from it. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. So if you remember a couple of lectures back, I have given you this example that if we had a circuitry of our interest which was receiving heat from a particular source, let us say it was getting heat from some other motherboards in the system, then in this kind of system, because we have treated it as a two-dimensional scenario, so we have to incorporate the heat addition to this system. And inversely, it could also be true if you have heat loss from a system. So I had given you the example of how the cooling pads take heat away from your laptops. So that could also be a source kind of system, but there we define or we call it as a sink term. So source is something that adds to the system and sink is something that takes things away from the system. So that is what we are going to have a look at it today. So firstly, let me start with how the governing equation is modified, and then we'll approach it using the finite volume method. So if I talk about the governing equation, so just like the 2D governing equation that we had for the diffusion problem, we have a extra term in the governing equation that we represent as capital S, that stands for the source. So the first two terms on the left hand side, I hope you are familiar with that. This is nothing but the two-dimensional representation of the conduction term or the diffusion terms. Now, in order to apply the finite volume principle, the idea remains still the same, that we take this governing equation and we integrate it over the finite volume. So if we do that, it simply means that the volume integral of the entire quantity is equals to 0. So now we can treat this as two separate integrals. The first integral is something that we have already looked at in the previous classes, that is the first two terms. So remember that we can use the Gauss divergence theorem there in order to convert the volume integral to a surface integral, and that is what we precisely do, that we take the first two terms, remove the gradients here and convert it to a area integral or a surface integral, and we keep the source term as it is. So I have simply divided this integral in two parts and we are keeping the source term intact. Now I want to talk about how we will deal with this integral of S dV. So first of all, if you remember the control volume that we have here, so we had a two-dimensional control volume with four faces that were lying midway between the relevant node points, that are the capital points. So now the idea is, if we take the surface integral, or sorry, the volume integral, which is on the source term, we can write it as some S bar, that is the average value of the source within that control volume, multiplied by delta V, that is the volume of this element. So what I'm saying here is, we are assuming that these finite volumes are so small that we can consider the average value of that rather than taking the point wise value everywhere within that volume. So that is sort of the first simplification that we make in order to move towards understanding this source term. So here, once we do that, so previously our problem was about getting the integral, but now our problem is about getting the source term's magnitude here, which is the S bar. So here we can have multiple kind of scenarios. We can have a constant value of source term, that is, let us say the constant heat supply to the system, or we can have some non-constant value, such as you can imagine that if you have a temperature based domain and if you have a surrounding, then the temperature loss or the heat loss is proportional to delta T. So in that kind of system, the heat loss would be proportional to the temperature itself. So to handle these kind of scenarios, one of the very convenient way to deal with the source term is what is called as a source term linearization. And in this, what we do is we say that this S bar delta V, this is linearized with respect to the temperature at point P or the variable of interest at point P. So we divide it in two terms, just like you have an equation for the straight line. So we say that it is some SU, some constant SU plus SP times TP. So again, this is one of the very standard ways to deal with it. I will talk about it in a little bit more detail as to why we go for this particular strategy. But for now, you can take it for the ease of implementation, because keeping linear terms in the system is much more easy to deal with as compared to having non-linear terms in the system. So as you can see, this kind of linearization, it is suitable for both constant as well as non-constant sources. At least you can see that if you have a constant heat source, then you have some non-zero value of SU and your SP would be simply 0 because your heat source is constant. And if you have some non-constant sources, then you can have this kind of variation from SP times TP. So as I said that this is linearized for computational convenience, but we can also deal with non-linear source term through this linearized version that we would have a look later on in this lecture. So now we have got the idea of how to write the source term. So what we will do is we will put this expression back into the original equation and we will try to get a discretized version of the governing equation. So in order to do that, I bring these terms back together. So I have done the Gauss divergence on the volume integral, got the area integral and integrated with respect to the respective control volume areas. And I have put the source term in its original form. And now using central differences, I can take care of all these derivatives terms that are appearing in the system. And again, I'm keeping the SU plus SPTP as it is. So now it is easy to see that we can separate all the variables and we can get an equation in this particular APTP kind of form. But the modification is that we have an extra SU appearing on the right hand side. So just like previous, we had these neighboring coefficients which are in the form of Ka divided by H, which remain as it is, whereas the coefficient AP, which was previously the sum of the neighboring coefficient, it also has some contribution from the SP. So this SP basically comes from here, which was plus SPTP, but when you arrange this equation in this form, you would see that this SP would come out as a negative sign. So that's the only change. If we use this linearized version of source term, that is the only change that we have to do in the Python scripts or any kind of existing codes that you have written if you want to consider the source. So that is where the finite volume again presents a very convenient expression that you still have the same form of the discretized equation with some minor changes. So having understood that, we would now look at how this kind of source term would change the physics of the problem. So we would consider a very similar example that we had considered before in 2D, which was a square domain with the 3 walls at a temperature of 0 and 1 wall at a temperature of 1. So now we would add a source of 50 watt per meter cube. So it is important to note that you have to keep a little bit track of sometimes the units. So here the source term is given in watt per meter cube. I have made it so that this is symbolical of S bar, so that when you multiply it by delta V or the volume, it comes out it is in watts. So now we would look at, and also we would compare it with the without source kind of scenario. So first I'll walk you through the example that we had looked before. Then I'll modify my code in order to get the source term into the equation, and then we'll see how the system changes with respect to that. So let's look into that now. So previously, without the source, our situation was something like this. Then when we have a temperature of 1 at the top wall, which now you can see through this color bar here, then the temperature variation in the system, it is something of this particular form as dictated by the boundary condition, that if I look across this center line here, then it increases gradually from 0 here to 1 over here. Now, we want to see how the system would actually change if we have the source in the system. So I have modified the existing code just to incorporate that. So I'll highlight what the modifications were. So first of all, I had the magnitude of source term here just as a number that I'm representing is Q, which is in watt per meter cube. So remember, the only change that I have to make here is with respect to the governing equations. So now, because it's a constant source, so the magnitude of SP that takes into account the variation if there is a non-constant source would be 0, because we have a constant source. Therefore, we would only have SU into the system. So we don't have to modify the variable AP because the SP is 0, and therefore the only change that I have to really do is with respect to the SU part. So here I have written AETE plus AWTW plus ANTN and ASTS, and here I simply have this H times Q times A. So here Q is the source and A into H, that becomes the volume of my control volume. So A is the cross sectional area and H is the spacing. So that becomes the volume. And now if I run this particular code, so let me also highlight some of the changes that I might have made over time. So one of the change here that I've done was I was monitoring the numerical error after every 500 iterations so that you can actually see as to what's really going on behind the scene. And I have added the color bar here, which I was missing in my previous lecture. So you can add the color bar using again the matplotlibs library. So you have plt dot color bar, and I have changed the orientation to vertical so that I would have a vertical color bar that stands on the right. So this figure would plot the numerical error over time, or rather over iterations, and you would see that it takes somewhere around a little less than 500 iteration, because I don't the 1500 is there, so it takes somewhere less than 2000 iterations. But more importantly, or more interestingly, this is the kind of temperature variation that we now see in the picture. So let us look at what the highlighting features. So first of all, now the temperature peaks rather in the center of the domain, and the highest temperature is almost close to 40. So that means that boundary conditions are not that important now, because now the boundary conditions are more or less 0 everywhere, and the temperature it tends to accumulate in the center, or the heat it tends to accumulate in the center. So that is how the source term can significantly change the behavior of a system, and I hope that I was able to convince you through this example. So this would more or less finish the discussion on the conduction problems or the diffusion problems, and in the next lecture onwards we would start the topic of convection diffusion problems. So we are gradually progressing towards the Navier-Stokes. So diffusion is one of the very important aspects of Navier-Stokes equations or flow problems, because that is where the viscous aspects of the flow actually comes into picture, and no fluid flow is actually inviscid. So viscous terms are very important, though their magnitudes might be relatively smaller, but that doesn't mean they are not important. So we had looked at that, and now we would start looking at the convection term that appears on the left hand side of the Navier-Stokes equation, and is one of the very challenging aspect. When we would look at that in greater detail, we would see that these are actually the nonlinear operators that are creating more of the issues that we actually achieve, or that we actually face while solving the Navier-Stokes equation. So convection diffusion problem would be a very interesting topic. So we would look at that in the next lecture. But if you have any questions so far related to the diffusion, whether it is 1D, 2D or related to the source, please put it down in the comments, and I will try to address your comments very quickly. So until the next lecture, please take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.